It's hard to believe it's already been 2 years since I started renting the Pacific Bend as a short-term rental property, and we just hit our 1-year marker for the Cedar Hollow. In this video, I'm going to explain exactly how much money the Pacific Bend and the Cedar Hollow made in 2024. And I'm going to break down all the expenses I had between the two properties that ultimately turned into a profit for 2024. Well, kind of. Just a brief recap for those of you that are new, which there's a lot of you. We just hit 100,000 subscribers, so thank you so much, guys. But the Pacific Bend and Cedar Hollow are two short-term rental properties I built myself. So the Pacific Bend is a shipping container home that's 1,600 square feet and it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Cedar Hollow is roughly 400 square feet and it's a 1-bedroom, 1-bath luxury couples getaway located in the back of the property. I'm also going to explain some lessons learned I had in 2024 that I'm bringing into 2025 to hopefully make the homes even more profitable in 2025. If you guys remember, the Pacific Bend made $128,000 in 2023, which we didn't rent the house fully in 2023. There was a couple months, January and February mainly, that I was prepping the home and just wrapping up construction before we officially launched in March. January made $8,500, which was quite a bit lower than some of the peak months that I had in 2023. And I think a lot of that's due to the seasonality of everyone just getting done with Christmas and looking at their credit card statements being like, oh crap, what did we just do? Also, it's just the winter time where it's smaller groups, and when there's smaller groups, I get a lower daily rate at the home. I also blocked off a few key weekends in January for friends and family coming into town for when we were skiing up at Stevens Pass. February, I tried to stay out of the home as much as possible, but I did still have to block a few days while I was wrapping up the Cedar Hollow's construction. There was a few days I was bringing in rock and it was just loud, so I blocked it off so I didn't disturb any of the Pacific Bend guests. March brought in $14,700, which was an awesome month, and I kind of attribute that to people in Seattle are coming out of hibernation. They've recovered from spending a ton over the holiday season, and the weather's starting to get nicer, so all the trails that are around the home are a little more accessible, and it's just a really pretty time leading up to spring out at the property. April dropped back down to $8,600 just because I comped a couple stays. I was gifting some stays to friends, and I had some family in town, and I think I even blocked off a couple days for myself at the home. Then May and June were right around $12,000. I was kind of letting the homes run, but it's not full peak season, so we're getting a pretty like median level average daily rate. Then July absolutely blew it out of the park at $19,000, which July is primo summertime out of the Pacific Northwest. That's what everyone that lives here is actually sticking around for our 4 months of glorious summertime hiking in the mountains and all that, which is why July was 100% occupied at some of the highest average daily rates. August tapered down a little bit at $17,500, and then September it continued to follow the trend as summer sort of tapers off to $14,000, which was still a really strong month. Then October was $12,000, and then November and December were right around $13,000, which the average daily rates on the holiday weeks tend to make up for the weeks on each side of the holidays. Occupancy wise, the Pacific Bend was booked out 88% of 2024, which blew my mind, especially when you back out all the days that I end up blocking off for myself, friends and family, and gifting stays and all that sort of stuff. That brings the total revenue for the Pacific Bend in 2024 to $155,000, which is up over $27,000 from 2023, which those numbers kind of blew me away, and they didn't at the same time. I put a ton of work into making sure that each and every experience is perfect and clean and tidy, and you guys just all have a fantastic time when you stay there. So thank you for any of you that did stay there in 2024. Okay, so now for the Cedar Hollow's revenue numbers. And going into 2024, I figured the Cedar Hollow would probably bring in around 60% of what the Pacific Bend's revenue numbers are, just because the Bend is a larger home, it can accommodate bigger parties, and the nightly rate is based on the total number of people staying there, which bumps it up a little bit more. And the Cedar Hollow is only able to accommodate 2 guests. Cedar Hollow brought in $126,000 in 2024, and that's without January or February being rented and even the slow ramp into March. So March brought in $7,500, which we weren't fully occupied, and I didn't fully open it up just because I'd have a guest stay, take any feedback they have, implement it into the home, just build myself a little buffer in case I built anything wrong or something falls apart or whatever. April was $8,600, which was a little bit more. I was letting the place book up a little bit more, not so much blocking days off. Then May was $11,600, which honestly I was shocked. I did not think the Cedar Hollow would be able to bring in over $10,000 in a month just for a little couple's getaway. Then June came in at just under $13,000. Then July just blew me away at 100% occupied and $16,000 in revenue. revenue. August did pretty much the same at $15,500. September and October, just like the bin, started to ramp down a little bit, so we were right around $13,000 there. And then November and December did better than the Pacific bin at right around $14,000, which makes for a grand total revenue of $126,000. That blew me away that the Cedar Hollow made as much as the Pacific bin made in its first year, just being a luxury couples, like two-person getaway. So the average occupancy for the home was 77% in 2024, and that's including the first 2 months where no one stayed there at all, which makes for an average daily rate across the whole year at $372 a night. So in 2024, for the Pacific bin making $155,000 and the Cedar Hollow making $126,000, the total revenue for both of the homes on the property was $281,000. Before I dive into all the expenses for what it takes to run both of these homes, I'm so excited to be announcing that I'm offering a 70% off discount code that applies to both the Cedar Hollow and the Pacific bin's fully engineered construction plans. That's everything from electrical, plumbing, structural foundation, everything that I use to build both of these homes, and I'm offering them at 70% off. That is the biggest discount I've ever offered on my construction plans, and I'm only opening up 100 codes. When you enter code 2025 at checkout, you'll get 70% off either the Cedar Hollow or the Pacific bin construction plans, and that includes everything that are in the full set of engineered construction plans, all the way from structural foundations to framing, or in the shipping containers case, all the structural steel work, the window schedules, roofing, all of that. Everything that I needed to build both of these homes are in those construction plans, and I'm offering them at 70% off, which is the biggest discount code I've ever done, and it's only available to the first 100 people that use code 2025 at checkout. Even if you're just looking for a little inspiration on building something similar to the Cedar Hollow, or just curious how container homes are built and built the right way. A lot of people do not build them right and honestly have some serious problems due to not building them right. So if you're looking for the right way to build shipping container homes, check out the Pacific bin's plans. Or if you're looking for a stick frame structure like the Cedar Hollow, or even to just do a variation and get a little inspiration, it's literally a few $100 to get either one of these sets of plans. All you have to do is go to thepacificbin.com/plans and enter code 2025 at checkout, and you will get 70% off the construction plans, and that's just available to the first 100 people. It's been so cool seeing those of you that bought the construction plans over the past year and have been using them to inspire your own buildings. And it's honestly so cool seeing all the variations on the Cedar Hollow and bin that you guys have built. So I'm glad that the plans were helpful, and hopefully these help out more of you in the future. And also for those of you that purchase the construction plans, I also do consulting. So if you have questions on certain details or curious how some things work, you can email me at info@thepacificbin.com, and I'm more than happy to hop on a call with you. And for the not so fun part, all the expenses to keep all of this running and in perfect order for each and every guest. My electricity cost for the year worked out to be $4,800, which is right around $400 a month. My cleaning fees were my biggest expense, coming in at $32,000, and that's $20,000 at the Pacific bin and $12,000 for the Cedar Hollow. Just because the Cedar Hollow is quite a bit smaller, it doesn't take nearly as much to keep the thing clean. Plus, I really optimized this whole space for cleaners. Just a little insight into how all my designs work. I have the whole deck up here fenced off, so we don't really have to worry about people tracking mud and gross stuff up here on the deck, so the deck stays really clean. And I've also put like hose spigots where they need to go, so it's just super easy for the cleaners to do any of the cleanings that they have to do between guests. So I was really able to take all my lessons learned from the Pacific bin from a maintenance perspective and integrate them into the Cedar Hollow here. So my property taxes were $5,800. Internet for the homes was $2,300, which that's kind of a skewed number because my phone plan is actually integrated in that as well. But I switched over to T-Mobile and have 2 wireless in-home internets, and they have been absolute champs. I found that Starlink was just way too expensive at $130 a month per station that I had, and between both of the homes, that was $260 a month. And that's without even a phone plan in there. So switching to T-Mobile really did save me a ton of money. And I've also found that the in-home wireless internet is top notch. It's super quick out by me. My home insurance for the year was just over $1,800 for both of the homes. I had a direct service fee from Guesty for Host for about $1,200, and that's for hosting my direct booking website, which if any of you do end up staying or want to check out either Cedar Hollow or the Pacific Bin, use the link in the description down below. That goes to my direct booking website, and you cut out all the extra margin that you normally would be paying off to Airbnb. Which, pro tip to save money on any of your Airbnbs or short-term rentals you stay at, if you find a cool one on Airbnb, you typically can go on Google, search the name of that home, and there's a pretty good chance that if it's a really cool home, they have a direct booking website, so you'll be able to cut out Airbnb's margin. Hope Airbnb doesn't see this. So my smart pricing software, which is Price Labs, is $442 a year, and that's for both of the homes, which is honestly a steal for not having to have me constantly go in and go change prices around. It's able to change prices based on occupancy in my area, and if it sees some cool event pop up, it's able to crank up the prices there just because demand's gonna be higher. So love Price Labs, and if you're an Airbnb host, I definitely recommend checking it out. And then my last category, which was miscellaneous expenses, was actually quite high at $52,000, and I was able to bake a lot of these miscellaneous one-off expenses into my operational expenses, which that's a lot of the furniture for the Cedar Hollow because I was still furnishing the whole space out, and just a bunch of miscellaneous garbage expenses for taking the trash out to the dump, and any extra materials that we had to order, from new sheets, soaps, towels, like mattresses, any new things that we ended up ordering for the home, I was able to bake into this category. And keep in mind, this $52,000 number is very high because there's some construction activities baked into that. Going into 2025, I don't have any of that hitting my operational expenses, which means that the property is going to be that much more profitable in 2025. So I'm really excited to see what it's like just letting this whole thing run for 2025. I do have to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Factor. I'm a huge fan of Factor. Those of you that have been following the channel for a while already know this, and that's because of the sheer amount of time that this meal service saves me. It's easily saved me over 100 hours in this past year by not having to go to the grocery store, not running all around for getting ingredients, cooking all the food, and then throwing it together and having to do all the dishes after the fact. Factor has saved me so much time with these fresh, never frozen meals where all you have to do is poke a couple holes, throw it in the microwave for 2 minutes, and then you have a delicious meal ready to eat. My schedule is all over the place between managing the Airbnbs, the new construction, my 9 to 5, editing videos. Like, there's so much to it. And it's really nice that Factor is super flexible, where you can vary the amount of meals you get on a weekly basis from 4 to 18 meals a week. So if you have family members, you can crank it way up, or if it's just you can do a few meals a week. There's also all sorts of add-ons that you can include with your Factor meals. Like, for example, I love the juices. This apple beet ginger juice is actually incredible. I really like it. I've been hooked on these things the last couple weeks. Between smoothies, snacks, juices, Factor has all sorts of things you're also able to include in their meal plan. And with over 35 weekly options of meals, you're never gonna get tired of what you're eating, and you can get a whole variety of meals, as opposed to like when I make a giant lasagna and I'm stuck eating lasagna for the whole week. With me turning 30 a couple weeks ago, health is definitely on the forefront of my mind. With me realizing I'm finally getting a little bit older, I really need to make sure I stay super dialed in my health. Having these extremely healthy meals and skipping the fast food trap where you actually end up spending more money on fast food when you go out for a really quick meal at like Wendy's or whatever. Head to factor.com or click the link down below and use code 50DevinLorb to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That's code 50DevinLorb at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. So my total profit, taking the $280,000 in revenue minus the $101,000 in expenses, puts me at $181,000 in profit this year. And that's I have to take out obviously all of the income taxes on that, and I have a private line of credit that I'm paying down extremely aggressively. So I pretty much made nothing this year again, just because I'm paying down so aggressively. Like, my bank account isn't just rocketing up, which is kind of discouraging, but I know in the long term, I got a big equity play in this property. And once everything's paid off, it's gonna be a totally different story. So some lessons learned from 2024 that I'm bringing into 2025 that are hopefully gonna make this whole property a little bit more profitable are, one, that I'm gonna stop staying out here, at least for the most part. If there's random one days that are open, I'll come out and stay. But I really need to optimize occupancy, especially with the barn dominium build kicking off here in the next little bit. I'm gonna need to have my hands on as much cash as possible. Secondly, I'm gonna hold strong on the pricing structure that I have built out already and really not fluctuate it too much. Like, I'll let Price Labs do its work. I feel like even if you look at Pacific Bin's April revenue numbers, I think I saw occupancy a little bit lower, so I just dropped rates as low as possible, and that's why the revenue wasn't quite as strong as what I wanted it to be, even though occupancy was really high. And I'm noticing that trends in 2025 are already looking like people are booking maybe 2-3 weeks out, which is a little bit less than what I saw in the past, where it was more like 3 to 4 weeks out. So I think just not panicking and not cranking my prices down just to get occupancy up is going to be another thing that drives my revenues a little bit higher in 2025. And lastly is just seasonal awareness and upping my marketing game in those little in-between months where it seems like occupancy is a little bit lower, where people are transitioning from all the joys of summer into the ski season of winter. So I think just making it known to people that those little in-between months are actually pretty sweet out here. So that's what I'm going to be doing in 2025 to hopefully increase profits and overall revenues for the whole property. So if you guys are interested in purchasing the Pacific Bin or Cedar Hollow construction plans, they're on my website, thepacificbin.com/plans, and when you enter code 2025 at checkout, you get 70% off. Remember, there's only 100 of those codes. Once they're used, the code goes dead. So if you're even remotely curious on how to build a container home or a stick-built tiny luxury home, be sure to check out the plans. Hundreds of people have found them extremely useful. So I'm so excited to offer them at a big discount for you guys to be able to get your foot in the door and understand how all of this works a little bit more. But thank you guys so much for following along, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.